Right. Hi, everybody. Chris Petri here. Welcome. Thanks for coming by and joining along with me here. We're just going to do some fun exploring of palettes and paints and colors, and we'll do some swatches and some painting very, very soon in just a few minutes. What I did was I have a Schmincke palette here, which you'll always see on my videos. It's a beautiful palette for my video creations here on YouTube, my tutorials, because it's compact, has plenty of room for mixing. It's got a large area for putting in our pans, and I do customize this one, and I do have a video on customizing your palettes. So if you look up my palettes, you just type in Chris Petri, my palettes, you'll see a video where I describe how I set up this palette with a different kind of setup with my pans and colors and things like that. And I'm almost sure I have all my other palettes that I've used over my time here on YouTube, so I probably have about 10 or more palette videos. So if you're interested in palettes and everything palettes, just type in Chris Petri into YouTube and then type in the word palette and paints. You can type palette or paints. You'll find I have a dozen or more videos on these, the subject matter, and it's a great thing. It'll be really helpful especially if you're just kind of new to watercolor, somewhat new. And if it's your first time here and you've never been on my channel before and have watched any of my videos, I want to welcome you and thank you for coming by and stopping by and placing your trust in me that I'm going to show you some really credible and fantastic watercolor information. And we get together here on YouTube each week, so I'll make maybe 2 or 3 videos each week, and we do all kinds of interesting subject matter, everything watercolor. So I'll do all kinds of subject matter. So just to let you know, if you're tuning in and you subscribe below on the right-hand side, you'll be kind of in touch with what we do here on my channel, which is everything watercolor. We do all subject matters you can imagine, and we also do beginner style and more professional style watercolors too at the same time. So we mix it up really well here on my channel. So again, we're getting back to the palette idea here. So I decided to get another Schmincke palette, the identical same palette, because I wanted to try some new colors and I wanted to see what Schmincke has in their palettes. And so you can kind of see they come with beautiful colors here. We're going to try these colors out. And I'm also going to try to figure out how I want to set these up in my pan. As you notice, I took these silver metal clips out of my Schmincke pan here, and then I installed my own pans here, my own watercolor pans, which you can buy online on Amazon or any art store might have them. But in any case, I'm going to stick with the stock Schmincke palette for right now. But you do notice it's the same exact pan that I have here that I use on all the time on a constant basis on my channel. So let's put that to the side over there. We're all familiar with that palette. Now we'll just kind of zone in on this one here. So let's take a look. These are all the new colors. What I'll do is I'll set this pan to the side. Maybe what I'll do is I'll zoom in a little more here. Okay, and then we'll take out these colors and we'll look at them. And what I'll do is I'll try to kind of set up my new Schmincke palette the same way I would set up all of my palettes. I try to always divide everything into warm and cool colors. So the first thing I'll do is I'll start to kind of figure out what colors are warm and which ones are cool. I'll get my water bucket, I'll empty my water bucket, and I'll put some fresh, clean water in my water bucket for a second here. And I like to also, if I have a water bucket, I'll take the water bucket before I start work. I'll take maybe like this is an old fan brush. I used to paint like Bob Ross and William Alexander paintings and Lynn Petard. These were all people that were on the public broadcasting in my area in New York, New Jersey, when I was younger, when I was like a teenager and a young adult. And so I remember I used to watch their videos. They did the wet on wet oil method, and I used to really enjoy that. I gave it a shot here and there. I would go out and buy a palette maybe once in a while and some tubes of paint and a couple canvases, and I would try those methods, and it worked out okay. I had some really good fun and just kept me in the joy of the artwork and things like that. It's a fun thing. Always in my family I had art growing up. And so let me blot that up a little bit there. And let's see here. Let's do this. Empty the water container one more time. And then now put some more fresh clean water in there. Good. And I'll set that to the right-hand side of my table. And incidentally, this palette does come with a brush too. The new Schmincke palette I bought. This comes with a brush. It's a nice Da Vinci synthetic round brush. So you can see that's really, really nice, right? That's got a great point on it. And so this is just something we're going to work with now, and we'll use this brush, and we'll take our paints, and what I'll try to do is, I know I'm going to go with warm first. I usually set up my palette warm to cool. So if I was starting left to right, I would say warm on the left, and then as I go to the right, I would go cooler. So let's take a look at the warmer colors first. So let's see, right off the bat, I can start to see the warmer colors, the reds and the yellows. So let's take those, and we'll kind of separate these, the reds and the yellows. Some of these I don't know exactly what color they are. They're very dark. Some look like blue. I think I see a blue there, maybe a green I see, but we have to wet them and kind of, you know, get them activated a little bit to find out what they are. But these here are pretty identifiable. So we'll start out with those. So let's say we'll put the cooler colors over here, and we'll start out with the warmer ones. And then I'm kind of thinking my normal setup, I go with the warm colors first to the left side. So I'll just start to take a look at these, and what I'll do is wow, beautiful color, look at that, nice. All right, so we got that there, looking good. Maybe I'll go with this one next. Let's see what this one is like here. Beautiful, like a rose color there. Wow, really beautiful. Pinkish red. Then we have an orangey red there. So already I'm starting to see the colors. They look beautiful. So I would say I would probably go with this one first. So I'm going to kind of try to get it correct the first time of how I think it would kind of be in my palette. So we have a cooler red here and a warmer red here. Then I would go with next maybe our yellows. Maybe I'll go with these two. It looks like there's a warm and a cool yellow, so I'll start out with maybe the cool yellow first. Yeah, that looks like a lemony yellow. And yeah, that looks like a lemony yellow, so we'll put that over here. That looks good. And then maybe this looks kind of like just a standard like cadmium yellow. Yeah, a little bit warmer, a little bit toward more of the orange and red side. This is more lemon yellow. That's more toward the cooler side, maybe like toward the green and blue. And so that'll be fine. We can leave that there. And then here, yes, we have a yellow ochre color. Let's take a look, see how that looks. And that is a yellow ochre. And please forgive me if I don't have the exact names of these paints. I took the wrappers off. All of these paints came in wrappers, and they were hard to get off. So or not hard to get off, but you know, they were very small wrappers. So I just took them and kind of put them to the side right now. But I'm just going to reference these colors as we have with our normal palette that we use all the time. So you can find these colors on my videos called My Palettes, Chris Petri, My Palettes, and you would find all those there. Now this one here, this is like a brick red. I would call this a brick red in my knowledge of colors. You know, I'm kind of used to a color like this being a brick red. It could also be a burnt sienna. So that's almost like a burnt sienna or a brick red, like that. And you know, that might kind of, I might put that over here. I think that might be like kind of where I might put that in my palette, like that. And then let's see what we have over here. These again are very, very dark, so it's hard to kind of see what they are. So we'll just come down here and sort of get these situated here, and we'll do this here. All right, I can see right away. That's like a cerulean blue. Yeah, it's about a cerulean blue, I'm thinking. And then over here, what do we have? That is an ivory black. You could kind of see that's like a warm black. It's not, there's not much blue in this black. It's kind of just like a nice warm black, almost like a black with a little bit of brown in it. Or maybe a red in there too with that black to give it that warm color. Let's see what we have here. So I'll just activate this with a little bit of water. And this is even maybe like a sepia tone. Yeah, that looks like a sepia tone to me. I use that all the time, so that is just a great thing. This is a green I can see. And this looks like a viridian green, kind of a cool green toward the blue side. So we have that there. So you can kind of see I'm just feeling these out, getting these out, and making sure I check them first to see what actual colors they seem to resonate with in my ideas of colors. I've been using the same palette. I always mention this. Maybe just a little tidbit of information anyway from my perspective. You know, usually I've been using the same palette of colors for like 10 or more years, 10, 12 years. So therefore I've memorized all those colors that I've been using the same colors over and over and over again for, you know, again, 10, 12, maybe or more years. So I see all my colors no matter what colors I buy, or if I have a tube of color, and let's say you gave me a gift of a couple tubes of color, and then I went to my studio and I started, you know, kind of squeezing out the tubes and looking at the colors. Right away, I would just look at it as my palette and say, oh, what does that look? Does that look like one of my colors in my palette? And sure enough, I would probably identify it pretty close to something that I have in my palette that I use all the time. And then I would say, oh yeah, that looks like a, that looks like more of a viridian green, like that. So I might say, yeah, that's more of a viridian green here. And then maybe this over here is more of like a sap green. So I can kind of feel out the colors as I go and get a better idea. So now that looks pretty good. I think I have all the colors out and I can kind of relate them to the my normal palette. So the next thing I would do is I would take this and I would say, okay, now I'm going to start putting my colors in my palette over here, like this, like that. And then what I might do is I might just tape down this palette, my new palette, just in a couple spots, just so it doesn't move all around. Okay, good. So that's kind of good and stable here. It's not going to move around too much on us. So again, I would start out, and I think this is a good, I think this is fine over here with this order that we have. And then I just squeeze this metal piece here a little bit. We'll just keep moving these into the spots here, into this row here, and there we have it. I have my warm colors up top. Perfect. Then I just take these and squeeze these on down. These little clips, these clips are really nice. You squeeze them down, they kind of hold the colors in place. Like that. So these stay in place nicely. Like that. Then we're going to take these here and we're going to say to ourselves, usually in my normal palette, I'll go from warm to cool, so all the warmer colors up here, and then I'm going to start coming over to the cooler colors. I would leave the blacks to my both black paints. I would keep over to the right over here, because those are colors that usually I'll leave all the way to the one side of my palette, all the way like in the lower corner or over on the right hand side, the blacks or the sepia tone. So I'll keep those over there. I know those are good there. So now I have blues I would consider putting my blues next to my blacks, and I keep my greens right after the browns, the earth tones. So that's really simple for me. I would go with my sap green first, my viridian green next. Then I would go with my, this is a cooler blue toward the green, and this is a warmer blue toward the red. So I'd keep the warmer to the right and the cooler to the left. And there we have it. So that's how I would set up my palette. My my new Schmincke palette with the Schmincke paints, the paint pans that come right with stock with the palette, and then I would spritz the water on there and just let them sit for a little while. So what we'll do is, now that we have our palette set up really nicely, we have the colors in the, again, I always mention that it kind of seems like it's a good approach to sort of have your colors warm and cool, kind of separated on your palette a little bit, or kind of organized in that fashion. You can do it the way you want. You can maybe put your warm and or your cooler colors up top and put your warmer colors on bottom, or you can put them in other ways that make more sense to you. It makes more sense to me to kind of keep the warms and the cools kind of separated. You know, just in my logic, that works for me, but you're the artist. You have to decide how you want to set up your palette. This is how I decided to set up mine a long time ago, and I have many professional watercolor artists that kind of did it this way, and I kind of like just kind of followed their direction, and then I realized it really did work for me, and it makes sense, and I've never left that kind of discipline of just always having everything warm and cool, divided, whatever palette I'm using. It doesn't matter whether it's this palette or a larger palette, or if I'm just squeezing out some paint on a ceramic plate or something like that, whatever it is, I do follow this same method all the time of doing warm and cool and using my palette in that fashion of setting up my colors. So what we'll do is we'll come right back in about 2 minutes. I'm just going to take a quick break. And what we'll do is we'll get a new sheet, fresh sheet of paper, and we'll do some color swatches with these new colors and see how they look. And we'll kind of do also an exercise where we're going to try to discipline ourselves to think about colors with the idea of tonal values, light and dark. And that forces you as a watercolor artist, and if you're just starting out, you really will benefit a lot from this exercise. And even if you've been painting for a while, it still will help to practice these things, because this will really help you in your paintings. To kind of think of tonal values, lights and darks. How are you going to make lights and darks in your colors? No matter what color you're using, you're always thinking of, is that a lighter red, a darker red? Is that a lighter yellow, darker yellow? Is that a lighter green, a darker blue, a lighter blue? So you'll always be thinking of that in your paintings. And so if you practice a little bit on a sheet of watercolor paper with some swatches like we did here, you'll kind of just remember it more. It'll just be more locked into your thoughts and your techniques as you go in watercolors. So I'm hoping I can be helpful here for you and kind of show you some things that I've always done as a watercolor artist, practicing swatches and practicing some fundamentals. They're kind of like warm-up exercises, so to speak. And we'll give it a try in just a second. I'm just going to reset up my table here, and then we'll come right back. All right, so we're going to get started with relocating our pan here. So I'll slide this over to the right, and I'll lift up this paper here, and we'll continue with our exercises here. So the thing I will do next is I'm going to set this up with some paper. So we'll start out with some watercolor paper again here. Maybe I'll zoom back a little bit. Like so. We'll bring our palette over here, like that. So we'll drop that down like this. We'll zoom in a little more, like that. Looks good. Okay, so I'll set everything up on this correctly, and then we'll just zip a couple pieces of tape on our paper here. Nothing too fancy, just some artist tape on the paper here. Maybe one more piece, small piece down here, just to keep the paper from moving around while we're painting. I always find that it really is helpful if I always tape down my paper, make sure it's really secure, so that when I am painting it doesn't move around too much and give me a problem if I'm painting something very small or intricate, and next thing you know, if the paper moves around, it can throw the brush all over the place and make a mess of things. So let's see here. We'll start out. We'll take a pencil, and so we'll just use a normal office pencil, and we'll do some swatches. And before I do that, let me just tape down my palette as well over here. Again, I like to tape things down like that. There we go. And then one more down here like so. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll start out and we'll have some fun here. We're going to do some swatches and we're going to start out with our reds and we'll go right along here the whole palette and then come back over on this side and keep working all these colors. And the main thing we want to do here is maybe we'll divide our paper in half and maybe we'll use a couple sheets of paper. We really aren't going to worry about that. We want to kind of just make sure we're working the exercises that we are creating here correctly. So what I'll do is you can do this freehand, or you can use stencils, or you can use maybe a ruler. Maybe we'll use a ruler here. Maybe this might be helpful. Let's say we'll divide our swatches into how many rows can we fit in here. Maybe if we say the swatches are about this big, so we'll make the swatches about the same size, the height of our swatches, our small squares or rectangles. If we make them the same height as the ruler, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we can fit 4. So I'm just going to loosely pencil in 4 rectangles, and I'll start them out like here, and we'll go 4 across too. So let's do this. Let's do this. We'll go right around like this. We'll stop a little bit short of that center pencil line like that, and then we'll do 4 spaces. So we'll do 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 4, and then we can go in and lift up our pencil line there a little bit so we can kind of make it. And then you can go over with a darker pencil line if you want to. Once you get it lightly sketched in, then you can just kind of practice contour drawing, which is just starting in one spot and going right around and moving the pencil around, stopping at the corner over there, going over here, start here. We can practice going left to right, right to left. So here we can even practice our contour drawing. Coming down, stop here, come over here, perfect, up, straight, stop there, and come across, and there we got it. So now we have 4. Then we can do another 1, 2, yeah, we can do another 3 easily there. So let's do this. The same thing, kind of lightly pencil in I'll just lightly trace around the ruler. And this is a half ruler, just a half size ruler. Like that. And then I'll just follow what's up here and just go right down like that. Follow the lines from up above. That makes it more simple. Then I can erase those little bit of lines in between. Like that. And you can do this home, have a good time. Take your time with it. I can go a little faster. I do these a lot. I've been doing these a long time, 15 years or more. I've been doing these type of exercises, so you can imagine I'm fast at it. But if you have to take your time, you don't worry about it. If you're just starting out in watercolor, and maybe you haven't used rulers before and pencils, and you're just, you can write or something, or, you're okay. You can draw your, write down notes with pencils and pens and things like that, or write and things, but you haven't really sketched at all or done any drawings before. That's when you just take your time. You go at your own pace. And again, I'll just practice my contour drawing, which is, again, you start in one place, almost like a jogger running in place, and then you go around, stop here, and you're just basically stopping and slowing down at places you're going to need to make a shift and go in a different direction. So I go around and I stop here, then I move my pencil up that way, stop here, and then come across that way. So as you practice these rectangles, it kind of gives you a better feel of stopping and starting as you're going around a drawing. And then you can kind of get used to that feeling of going quicker, slowing down, stopping, going faster, slowing down, stopping, make a little dot, come across this way. Basically that same process over and over. Start in one place, slow down, make a dot, stop, move your hand in a more comfortable position, come over here, stop. If you have to move your hand in a more comfortable position to move upwards, you do that. So you just get comfortable with stopping and going, but keeping one pencil line going at all times. Like that. That. We'll do one more. Have a blast with this, have a good time. Again, a light pencil line for this part where we go around, go trace around our half ruler here. And then once we do that light tracing, then we just kind of drop this line, plumb line down straight. And then we go, and we can do the same thing there. Plumb line down, plumb line down, plumb line down. Get used to using your pencil as your help yourself to get your angles and things. So if you know you want to keep your angles straight here, going like this across, you just kind of remember, hold the pencil there and say, okay, that's about that. There, and then about there. Like that, and that's all there is to it. Just practicing the fundamentals of drawing. And I usually draw any old thing. I draw pencils, pens, paintbrushes, cups, mugs. I draw, anything like flowers, a vase. I have tons of things around the studio I like to paint. I have foam. I guess they call it faux or replica fruit that are like styrofoam. You've seen me use that on my channel before, so I use all kinds of things. I just draw them, then paint them, and practice, and that's the fundamentals of watercolor. And so let's get started over here now on our swatches. So like we said, we want to try to really focus in on going with light to dark. So let's make a note up here. Let's call this like dark up here, dark, light, and we'll call these mediums, medium tonal values. But for right now, we just kind of label those. We want to go dark on this side and get lighter over here. And then we'll take our first color. Let's go with our beautiful red here. This is like a kind of like a rose madder red. Alizarin reminds me of alizarin crimson. And then that's what I'm going to do. Just put that paint right in there and just keep my paint within that rectangle as best I can. And I move my hand around and always rest my hand on the paper as I go. So I don't really, and this really helps when you have a really nice brand new brush with a very, very good point. You can really kind of get that brushwork really accurate with a really sharp brand new brush like this one is here. And there we go. So that's our dark in this color, which is what we're calling like maybe a rose madder or an alizarin crimson. Now we're going to say let's, usually what I do is I'll have a sponge next to my water pail, which is, I'll make it damp, so I'll just dampen it up a little bit with some water. And that's always good to kind of dampen up your sponge first and then wring it out. So that's what I do. I wring out my sponge. That's right. And now I have a damp sponge. And then I set that next to the water pail. And then when I rinse off my brush, I dab it on the sponge first, like this. And then I come over and get my paints. So I rinse off the brush, dab it on the sponge, and then I come over here and I say, all right, I want to make a lighter medium tonal value on this red. So let me go over here. And since I want to make it lighter, I'm going to put the red over here, straight red right out of the palette, or this is the paint well. But I'll add a little bit more water there. So you can see I added a little bit of water. Let's try it out and see how that looks. That's good. You can see it's a little lighter, not quite as dark as that. And you can add a little more water to it if you want, if you think it's going to wind up being too dark. But I think, remember, watercolor always dries lighter. So when you put it on the paper, it is going to dry lighter. So I think that one is going to dry a little bit lighter. Let's now rinse our brush off, dry off a little bit of paint on the sponge. And we'll add a little more water to that yet. So now we have even a lighter tonal value right there. And now you can see we're developing the idea of getting washes now on the paper that are lightening as we go down the line here. And there's more variations in between these two. You can make these, but this would be like maybe 4 really good basic tonal values in that red. And then we'll go in again, rinse off the brush. And then now we'll just use a tiny bit of color to get that last one. And I think that's a fun exercise, don't you think so? And then we're gonna continue. Let's do the orange. Let's kind of see what the orange is looking like. Okay, that's straight orange right there. So I'm not really using any water, just a damp brush, and I go right into that paint pan. There we go. That is straight paint right out of the pan. That's our darkest dark that we can get with that color. The strongest tonal value, the darkest tonal value, I should say, and the strongest color. Then what we'll do is we'll take that and we'll just bring it over here, and then we'll add just a touch of water to it. So I rinse off the brush, dab a little bit of paint off on the sponge, and make a little bit of a lighter orange. And there we go. And you can do different. That will keep drying lighter. And let's do even more. Let's rinse off the brush, and we're gonna. So maybe I can do an H stroke here once. I could come down here like this. Go across there, and then across there, and across there. And then we'll take some more water. Z stroke. You can do letters to make your strokes go a little bit quicker and easier. And there we have it. We just did the same thing. These are great to practice. You'll have a lot of fun. Let's do one more and then we'll take a break. And you do need to take some breaks here when you work on these. They are, technical. So you do find that you might get tired or a little bit, you might find that you get fatigued a little bit as you're doing these if you keep doing them. So that's why I take breaks. In this one here, we're going to go with the next color. This is like a lemony yellow. So we're going to go in and get that lemony yellow. And I'm just moving my brush any old way. But again, you can practice the different strokes. We did a couple. We'll do another few. Okay, so that's that one there. The first swatch. Then we take that color and we bring it over here. And we say, let's make another swatch just a little bit lighter. Good, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll pick up a little bit more water and water this down a little bit, add some more water to that, dilute down that color. And then maybe let's do a S stroke. Make the letter S. that's even a little bit lighter yet. And then our last swatch, let's do barely any color, just a little bit of water and a little bit of paint, tiny bit of paint. Like that. So now you're kind of seeing the variations you can get with these colors. From the darkest dark straight paint right out of your palette right to the paper, and then you can add and dilute down and add lots of water and you get a really beautiful light tonal value of color like that. And maybe we'll do yellow ochre next. This cadmium yellow is almost like the lemon yellow that we have there, so I'm trying to think if this is the cadmium. Yeah, that's the cadmium yellow. So this is more of the cooler yellow, the lemony type of yellow, so we'll use that there. Then we'll kind of shift over here. Let's use the yellow ochre color first, or next, I should say. So let's do that. Straight out of the palette, no water, just a damp brush to get this swatch done here. And we take our time. Okay, so we have that there. Let's come over here. Now I'll just take a damp brush with a little water in it, and we'll get our next wash going there, the Z stroke. Then we can fill in there, fill in here. And if you go outside that pencil line, no big deal. And then we'll add, again, some more water to this. But more water, not more paint, so this way it'll create a lighter wash. I'll just go down like this, like that. And then one more, and this one is extremely, mostly water and just that touch of that paint there, very little. You can see how I kind of diluted it down. And you can kind of look at it right on the palette and see how it gets lighter as it comes across here. You can see how that's much lighter, and that's darker there, the tonal value of it. And that's just by adding more water and less paint. All right, we did our warm colors. Let's do our cool colors next over here on the right hand side, and we'll finish up with our cool colors. So I'm excited. Let's get into those cool colors next. But again, I'm just going to take a quick break. Again, this can be fatiguing, so always remember that. If you're painting, don't get frustrated. Don't get worried if you're painting outside the lines, or this takes practice, and you just do them. You just do them as your kind of your warm up exercises as you're doing watercolors. Every once in a while, maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks, you take a sheet of paper and you practice these, and you just do it every once in a while, and you'll be surprised. You really do kind of like pick up some really good information for yourself. You'll kind of, as you go, you'll see, you'll pick up different information as you're working on these exercises. You'll find painting is easier when you're doing these type of exercises as you're mixing it into your repertoire as an artist, as a watercolor artist. That's all it is. But these are so fun too, because it's really relaxing, right? We're not under any stress here at all. We're not like trying to make a great painting and saying, oh, but the pressure's on, I got to do a painting. Got to look great. It's got to look great. And next thing you know, we're under all that pressure. These are so much fun because we're just coming in and we're having a fun time, but we're also thinking of it seriously too. We're doing these exercises. These are warm-up exercises. They're important too, and they're serious, but they're not as serious if we're trying to go in and do a really beautiful painting. Of course, we always want to try to create some beautiful paintings as we go in our art journey here. But let's come right back in just a minute, and we'll start doing our cooler colors here on the bottom section of our palette. All right, so we're getting back started again. Now, the first thing I'd like to do is I will take a small piece of paper towel, and I'll just kind of get this palette neatened up a bit. I'll just lift up that paint that we were mixing before. And that's fine. And then we will start with our cool colors now. And I'll also empty my water bucket, so I'll just empty the water bucket. Put a little fresh, clean water in the water bucket. I have my sponge next to my water bucket, as we were talking about before, so we can take a little bit of that water and just tap our brush on the sponge. Once we rinse off our brush, tap the brush on the sponge to take off some of the water, so we don't have a brush flooded with water when we're going over here to work on our paints. And then let's do some freehand swatches. Why not? Maybe what we can do is we'll do like we did before, except maybe we'll just do the trace. We'll trace the ruler like we did before, like so, and we'll stop short of the edge of the paper. And I'll just make sure I'm not off the video camera here. Okay, I'm okay. Like that. Okay, and then I'll do the same thing. We'll just go right down the line. We'll kind of keep ourselves level across here. You kind of can see how we're going to keep this ruler level with these here. So you can almost do that. You can almost go like this and say, okay, I'm going to go right across there and just hold the ruler there and slide it on over. And then press down on the ruler nice and firmly so that it doesn't move around. And then you can trace over that. And then trace down a line there, plumb line. Same thing here, just move it on over like that. And then again, trace around. We'll make like a large rectangle here. And the same thing, I'll just draw a plumb line down there. Same thing here. Right across there. Right around like so. Trace around that way, then lift up my hand so I can get my pencil into there like so. And then draw another pencil line there. So now we have an elongated rectangle. Now what we can do here is, instead of maybe separating the swatches or the rectangles here into individual boxes or rectangles, let's kind of take our color and we'll just mix it out. And what we'll do is we'll try to start out with the darkest dark on the same thing over here. We'll say dark to light. So we'll just say over here we're going to start again dark on this side. And then as we go this way, we're going to lighten it up so that over here it's lighter at the very, very right edge of our paper. So let's try to do that. I think we can do that pretty successfully. It also gives us a good chance to practice our brush work. Maybe we'll use a little bit of a larger brush. So I might step it up a little bit with a larger brush here. So I'm going to use a Charles Reed travel brush by Escoda. And you can kind of see that the brush hairs are a little more heavier here, larger. So we'll be able to paint a little quicker and go across here a little more efficiently than using this smaller brush. But this smaller brush works great. Perfect size to do these size swatches here that we just did. But now we're going to go with a larger swatch like this, and we're going to make it all together unified all the way across. So we'll use a little bit of a larger brush again, probably twice the size of the number 5 here that we have. So we have a number 5 here. This is probably like a number 6 or 8 brush. So let's get our brush. We'll wet the brush, tap a little bit of water off on the sponge, and now we're just looking to go with a damp brush over to our paints. Damp brush, and then we'll start out here. And we're going to use nothing but rich, exciting, juicy paint, straight paint with just a damp brush. So there's basically straight paint, if you can imagine. There's like hardly any water at all. Just basically our damp brush is all we have for this side over here on the darkest section of this swatch. There we go. So we start off with something like that, almost like here, or here, or here, or here. Then we'll rinse off the brush again. Then we'll go in and we'll pick up some of the color, but then we'll start to work it out over here a little bit, and then we'll go in and get a little more water out of the water bucket so we can have a little bit of water here in the palette. And then we'll come here and start over here with a little bit of water and paint, a little more water added to the paint. And we can just kind of mix that right up to that, like that. And we can get some more straight paint there and almost try to blend it a little better than I had it there at first. There we go. So now I'm starting to blend this. Now I go in, get a little more water. clean, damp brush. A little bit more than a damp brush. I added some water to that, and you can kind of see now it's a little bit more puddly looking, the wash as I'm going across. So the fun of it here is we're just trying to go from dark, dark to lightest light as we go across here. So we take our time. We take our time and do this. Then we rinse off the brush, dry off the paint on the sponge, the water off the brush on the sponge, and then we come over here with just a damp brush, maybe a little bit of color we'll pick up. Now we're getting really light. And then here I'll rinse off the brush one more time, dry off the excess water on the sponge. So now I just have a damp brush. And now you'll see I'm just going to finish out this side with very, very light wash. Almost no paint and just a bit of water. Like that. And you can kind of mix it over like that. Just kind of, and there we go. We've done a really nice job of mixing our dark over to our lightest light in one swatch all the way across. Very good. Now, let's start out. This one here is beautiful turquoisey color. Straight paint. Looks beautiful. A nice viridian color. Turquoise kind of color. Rinse off the brush. I'll put a little bit of color on the palette there just so I have some, so I can kind of see it and go, okay, that's about a medium tonal value there. And I'm painting within my pencil lines as best I can. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the paint, and I go in with a damp brush now. Rinse off the brush again, tap off the water, and then just end up with the lightest of lights. There we go. All right, and let's, I'm just going to take a quick break. And I'll come right back and we'll finish up with two more colors. I think we're going to go with a blue, and maybe we'll go with like a black or a sepia tone. I'm trying to think what we have left here. Let's take a look here. We have, all right, two blues left. Okay, so we'll go with maybe this one here. It looks like a French ultramarine blue. And then maybe we'll do a sepia tone or a black. I'm not sure now what I'll do. Maybe we'll do the sepia tone. Yeah, I think we'll do that. All right, so we have a little bit of a game plan going forward here. Next, we'll do the this color here, which is our, looks like pretty much a French ultramarine blue, which I use all the time in my normal palette. I use French ultramarine blue and cerulean blue all the time. So those are very, very beautiful colors I really enjoy. And then this one here is the sepia tone, which I use all the time for my sepia tone paintings, which I do figure work and all kinds of interesting subject matter with my sepia tone paints from Winsor Newton. But and in any case, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back in about 2 minutes. All right, so we're going to get started again. I'd like to mention here that you can kind of see sometimes when we do these larger washes, sometimes it does, there are sometimes some unpleasant looking marks on the paper. They call them balloons, blossoms, cauliflowers, things like that, that happen when we sort of go back in and adjust the washes or go back in and reintroduce the brush into the wash and the paper. So I guess our ultimate goal is, this is not really, you know, I sometimes think this could look okay in a painting if you're doing a sky wash or some water and you have a little bit of inconsistencies in the wash. But if you really want a perfect wash, let's kind of go over how we're going to do that. So let's try to get these next two washes across here more, let's say, perfect, or really close to perfect as we can. This one here came out okay, but you can see there's water kind of, I added a little too much water up here, and you can see how that got a little bit too light. And then over here you can see there's one water spot that happened there, and then we have another couple of bits of ballooning and blossoming and cauliflowering over here on the right hand side. So don't worry about it when this happens. If we want to make a truly the best wash we can, the best way to do it is start in one side and move all the way across, and we won't go back in and readjust anything. We'll try to get everything in one good smooth wash all the way across. I tend to sometimes go back in and adjust the colors and things like that when I'm kind of fussing around too much with it. So let's not do that. So let's take our French ultramarine blue. So I'm going to rinse off my brush, and I'm going to go right into that French ultramarine color, but I don't want to add any water to it. I just want to go straight paint. And then let's try that. Let's get that first bit over here. Straight paint, really. And not much water at all. Try to just do it straight damp brush with the paint, and that's it. Damp brush and paint. Okay, so now we have that. We can leave that alone. We won't touch this anymore with our brush. Then we go in and we come over here and we add a little bit of paint and water, and then we'll start to work our way this way. Then we rinse off the brush, maybe a little more water, less paint, and then now we'll just kind of, if the quicker we go, the easier it's going to be. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water on the sponge, and then we just come across here and try to use this last bit of color to match up to this section over here. Now what we did here to get this almost what we would call almost a perfect graded wash, I forgot to say that, we could call this a graded wash. That's the technical term for it. When you take it and go from dark to light in one wash going across, that would be called a graded wash. Light to dark. Dark to light, I should say. Dark to light. Like that. Now let's try our sepia tone, see if we can do it. And this is not easy. You can kind of see I still have found that I've gotten a few water spots. So the thing I would say here is let's even go much more methodically when we do this. Let's make sure that we don't take our brush and go back in anywhere where we've been painting previously. So when I came over here and touched up along the pencil lines, that's when I had my problem there, where I had a little bit of this kind of discoloration up here with a little bit of too much lights over here where the dark should be. So let's again try this here. We'll do our sepia tone, damp brush, straight paint, and this is how I'm going to kind of judge how I'm doing. I'm not going to go back anywhere, I don't think. I'm just going to do this. As long as I'm moving at a good pace, I should be able to do this okay. Okay, I rinse off my brush. I take a little bit of that sepia tone paint, come down here, and I'm just going to try to start to lighten it up now as we go across here. See, I'm already going back there. I got to try to remember to keep that brush moving and not going back in where I was before. That's the key. so that you don't get those spots. And then we got another rinsed brush. Now we're going in with the lighter tones. And I think we might have it on this one. Rinse off the brush, dry it off on the paper towel or sponge. And I'm just going to do it this way. There we go. Okay, so that's a little better. And again, you can kind of see how it does sometimes when you're doing a graded wash across the page. You will get some maybe marks and things like that across there. And then I think the best way to avoid something like this is to pre-wet the paper. So what we'll do is we'll take another break. Let's see how it works if we pre-wet the paper a little bit, if we dampen the paper while we're doing one of these exercises like this. And we'll see if that helps a little bit to kind of make that wash a little more smooth as we go across. We weren't doing that. We weren't wetting the paper first or dampening the paper. We were just going with straight dry paper and going across and doing our washes. So if anything, let's see how that might work out if we go across this with a bit of damp paper as we're painting, and see if that helps us to blend that wash a little smoother. All right, let's try a few more graded washes. Let's see how they turn out. I'm just going to remove this paper here. And what I'll do is I'm going to take this paper and just peel off that page, the top page that we're just using, with a small Swiss Army knife. Go. Okay, so we'll spin this back around again here, and we'll set ourselves up. We'll put our paper there. A couple pieces of tape just to steady the pad of paper. Okay, now let's do it again here. Okay, we'll put our try that. Okay, let's see if we can do this. Let's try to dampen this a little bit before we start. So I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm just going to take some water and dampen the whole rectangle here, the whole swatch area. Just one damp brush worth of water, just to dampen the paper. I don't want to flood the paper with water. Just a little damp brush there, like that. And then I'll just let it sit for a second. Okay, and then we're going to go back in. Let's get maybe one of the other colors that we have. Let's try our cerulean type blue. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's take just a damp brush and we'll go right into our cerulean blue. And then we'll just start to work that in to our swatch area. And again, we're going to kind of see if we can get these colors to blend a little better. Okay, I'll rinse off my brush, and I'm going to work at a good pace here. I don't want to kind of linger too much. Okay, so I'm going to start doing this, going across. Okay, then I'll rinse off my brush some more, tap off the excess water, and then I'm going to start to, rinse off my brush again, dry off a little more water if I can. I might even need you to use some paper towel or tissue to maybe dry off my brush even more. But I think this is looking okay. Yeah, I think that's going to be fine. Rinse off my brush one more last time. This time I will use a little bit of tissue, dry off the excess water off the brush. And I'm just going to sort of do those parallel brush strokes like this. And then you can see how that beautifully smoothed those washes all the way across the paper with no funny looking marks on there. So that is really a great way to get some beautiful washes, is by pre-wetting your paper. A lot of times I do just go straight into the dry paper without pre-wetting it. And again, you see I went around and fussed with this edge over here, and now I'm creating funny spots on the paper. So I think the thing here is, remember, in watercolor, it's really like a fundamental principle, and a lot of people forget it, and I forget it myself, and I do it all the time. But once you get a wash down, don't go back in with your brush at all. Try not to go back and touch up your washes at all. Try to get them down in one quick movement across whatever section you're doing, up or down or across or side to side, whatever your washes are going to be doing when you're working on your compositions, whatever you might be painting. But you can kind of even see as I went in and just tried to touch up along my pencil lines over here up top, I already made unpleasant looking marks on that wash. So if you are looking for a really incredible, beautiful, smooth looking wash on your painting, this is the way to go. You pre-moisten your paper just a little bit with a damp brush, then you put your wash on. You can get that gorgeous looking graded wash right across without any unpleasant looking stop and go marks, the smudges and all that kind of thing. Let's do one more. Let's maybe try, trying to think, maybe we'll do a green. I think we did our greens. We did both greens. Let's do our black. And we'll do the same thing. We'll try to do it just like this again. We'll do another trace around our ruler, half ruler. I press down really firmly on top of that ruler so it doesn't move around as I trace around it. That gives us a perfect rectangle, elongated rectangle. And then we'll go back in here and do the same thing. We'll rinse off the brush, check a little water off on the sponge, and we'll come over here. But before we do that, we just almost forgot to do it. Let's get some fresh, clean water too. So I'll start out again with fresh, clean water. Empty my bucket once in a while as I'm painting. Okay, then we have that done, and then we'll get this damp. So I'm just going to use a damp brush, and I'll just dampen this paper right along this line here, this pencil line. Dampen the whole elongated rectangle here. This is really fun too. You kind of learn a lot when we're doing exercises like this together. We learn a lot. We really do. We kind of sometimes we forget to take a trip, back and work on some exercises and things like that, and compositions like this, and warm-ups and things. But I can kind of see I have it there. Everything's damp, looks good. We'll go right in, we'll get our black damp brush in this top of the paint here. Load up the brush. I load up the brush again with more paint, straight paint right out of that. Okay, now I rinse off the brush again, take some of this paint, bring it down here like so. I'll have to double stick tape these in maybe. And then we'll keep doing the same thing. We're going to try to blend that together, getting a little bit lighter as we go. Okay, so now we're about good there. Let's rinse off the brush again, dry off the water. And it seems to be working well as we're going across. And then I just use the damp brush. Rinse off the brush, and then the last bit I just dry off on a paper towel or a sponge, or I mean a paper towel or tissue, just to keep that super light. Just a okay. I'm not going back in anywhere else. I'm just going to leave it as it is. And you can see that does come out pretty good. Pre-wetting the paper, it looks great. It actually solves that problem for us of having those kind of like unpleasant, again, like splotches of paint and dark and light mixing together. And they call that back runs. Sometimes back runs are when you might touch your paper, touch your brush down to the paper. I think we had those spots over here. These would be kind of called back runs, where you touch down on a wash you created and then you put too much water on, and then the water flows back in and starts to, lighten up. That's a background there, a background over here. You can kind of see it over here too. So we had more trouble trying to paint this exercise with the elongated rectangles and the graded washes. We had a harder time when we were trying to do it just on dry paper and going right across. But once we added our water, we pre-wet our paper, it worked out much better. Let's do one last time so we kind of really get this solid in our minds. All right, we kind of get it now. Okay, then we're going to pre-wet the paper. Let's do that. And I pre-wet the paper, keeping my brush and the damp brush inside those pencil lines. I don't want to go outside those pencil lines for sure. I want to keep everything in there. All the damp water, I want it staying within those pencil lines. I kind of sometimes look around and I tilt my head a little bit. So sometimes, you know how you do that when you're painting watercolor, you kind of tilt your head and try to like see the shine on the paper as you're painting. That's a good tip that you kind of learn as you're going. I think most of us kind of know that already. We kind of look and tilt our head a little bit and look around and check and see if we can see the sheen on the paper where the water is, just to make sure we got everything covered there, and we do. And then next thing we'll say is let's pick another color. We did blue, we did black. Let's do a warm color. Let's go with, let's do this, the cadmium red. And again, this is giving me a little bit of an issue with the paints not staying inside the tray. That's probably my fault. I did not squeeze those enough. I didn't squeeze the metal down tight enough against the. I usually create my own palettes anyway and do things my own way, but okay, and that is the darkest dark of the cadmium red. Then I rinse off the brush. Add a touch of water in my palette. But mostly we don't want to add too much water because we already have the paper damp here. So, and I just want to keep working that this way. Okay, and then we lighten up a little bit by just adding, I just take my brush, rinse off my brush, tap off the water on a paper towel or tissue. And I just want to keep bringing that this way. I want to keep working that wash this way as we're doing. And perfect, see that? And then we rinse off our brush for the last time with, again, just no paint, just a little bit of a damp brush now. And we just get this. I try to blend a little bit if I can, because sometimes you can kind of see those blending spots. I don't want to have too much of those spots of where we blend things together too much. Let's see if we got it on this too. Yeah, I think we got it on that one too. Look how good that looks. So we went dark to light. We dampened the paper first, and look how much easier those washes went versus if we just go with the straight paper with no dampening and pre-moistening of the paper. So you can kind of see this will help you if you're trying to do large washes like this, large washes of watercolor paint, and you want to have a nice, beautiful, smooth, graded wash like this, or any wash in particular, or not in anything particular. It could be a graded wash, or it could just be all one type of wash where you just want a certain couple blends of color. We could do one more. Let's do a blend of colors just to kind of see how that would look. Let's take this here and do a blend of colors. You know, we've been working with just one color per exercise, but we can go with a mix of colors. Let's try that. Again, let's pre-moisten the paper. Okay, we've pre-moistened the paper. Perfect. Now we'll mix up some different colors. Let's go with, let's use some, I would say let's go with some blues and greens. I'm just going to mix up some colors here. Okay, then let's get some yellow ochre maybe and some of this red here. Rinse off the brush. I might take a tissue, dry off the brush a little bit, and try to mix in a little bit there. Let's not try to go back in there too much, though I have a tendency to do that a lot. I always go back in and try to mix in colors and things. Blend colors as I go. And then let's see here. Now we'll get some gold, some yellows, yellow ochres. And what else can we use? We'll use red. We'll use some of that rose color there. And then we can maybe lighten it up and do a lighter kind of a sepia tone wash there. So there we did a mixture of colors. And you can see that really blends nicely. When you pre-wet the paper, again, you can blend a lot of colors in one wash. And again, we should kind of avoid doing that, going back in and Once you get that wash in, let it go, let it sit, let it set up, let it dry, and then you can always go back in and do other washes alongside that if you want to. So you can always go back and do some other washes alongside it. Go. So you can kind of keep working on some washes as you go. Take some of this, mix it around. And you can just do some kind of grayish colors, mix around the colors that you have left on your palette. That looks usually interesting. It kind of using some grayed down colors around some really bright, beautiful, exciting colors. Kind of it accentuates the colors itself, themselves. All right, so that's fun. We had a good time here, enjoyed doing some really nice swatches. We did our preliminary swatches here, our colors to test out how we can get our dark to light washes with our new colors here that we're using from the Schmincke palette. We did some dark to light washes, what they call graded washes, the technical term. And then we also worked on using some graded washes, but we also introduced the pre-wetting or pre-moistening of our watercolor paper first, and then we noticed that it really did help us to get a more beautiful, smoothly graded wash across our paper. So you can use these techniques and these methods in your watercolor painting. I'm sure you're going to, and it's just a great time getting together with everyone. Thanks so much for coming by, everybody, for painting along with me, doing our exercises here, our compositions. I'm hoping you'll subscribe on the right-hand side below. If you haven't subscribed before, please do. It'll just keep you in contact with us. You'll get like just an alert on your YouTube channel. So next time you open up YouTube, you'll just see that we've created a new video. It'll alert you as to our new videos coming out. So we're always doing 2 or 3 videos every weekend. We even do videos during the week, so you'll always get alerted when our new videos come out. And really a good thing. You can kind of keep up to date on what we're doing. Watch the videos if you want to practice along too. That's great. That really helps a lot. Watching is just a great thing too. You'll learn a lot from just watching videos. I always tell everyone that I've watched so many videos in my lifetime with watercolors, with going back to my earliest days when I used to watch all the public TV, Bob Ross and William Alexander and Lynn Petard and all these great artists that were doing oil painting and things on TV when I was young. So again, watching can really be tremendously helpful. You kind of pick things up. You can watch from kind of like an armchair quarterback kind of situation where you're just looking in from the outside in, and you're not really so much using your brushes and your art tools. You're just kind of watching, and you kind of pick up a lot of cool things like that. So I'm happy that you're watching here and joining along with us each week on YouTube. Hope everyone is doing well out there, and we'll see you on the next video. And I also say, too, enjoy the watercolor journey. It's not an overnight journey. It takes time to learn watercolors. Don't get worried about it if you don't feel your paintings are coming out great right away. It does take some time. Give yourself a couple years at it. watch our videos, keep learning the fundamentals over and over and over again. I cover those in each video. I always mention that too. And you always can go into this comment section, ask questions if you need to. And there's tons of other people that are also leaving great comments in my comment section that kind of give some great helpful hints to how they do their watercolors. And so you'll always find a lot of great information in the comment section as well. And I just wish you the best, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.